When you finally understand this, you'll never chase an avoidant again. Have you ever tried to love someone who made you feel like you were always one step away from being enough? The moment you stop chasing that kind of person isn't when they change. It's when you finally understand why you ever chased them in the first place. We've all had that person, the one who made us feel like we were constantly trying to earn their affection. They'd pull away just when things started to feel close. And there we were, overanalyzing every text, replaying every moment, wondering what we did wrong. But here's the truth that changes everything. An avoidant doesn't pull away because you're too much. They pull away because closeness feels too much for them. They mistake intimacy for danger. And if you're the kind of person who grew up thinking love had to be proven, their distance feels like a test you have to pass. So you chase, you try harder, you overgive. You wait for that small moment of connection like it's oxygen. But real love doesn't make you beg for air. When you finally understand that their avoidance isn't about your worth, it's about their fear, you stop making their silence your responsibility. You stop thinking their withdrawal is your cue to perform. You stop chasing because healthy love doesn't require you to convince someone to stay. It flows in both directions. It feels calm, consistent, and safe. And once you experience that kind of love, whether it's with someone new or with yourself, the avoidance stops being mysterious. They start being exhausting. That's when you finally walk away, not out of anger, but out of clarity, because you've learned the most important truth of all. You don't need to chase someone who's running from the very thing you're ready to give. When someone with avoidant tendencies pulls away, it's easy to take it personally. It feels like rejection. You start questioning yourself, was I too needy, too intense, too emotional? Did I say something wrong? But when you look beneath the surface, you begin to see something deeper happening. Avoidance isn't really about rejecting you. It's about protecting themselves. It's a defense mechanism built over time, often rooted in experiences that taught them closeness equals danger, vulnerability equals pain, and love equals loss of control. An avoidant person learned, consciously or not, that the safest way to stay in a relationship is to keep one foot out the door. They may crave connection, but the moment someone gets too close, their internal alarm goes off. Suddenly, affection feels like pressure. Emotional intimacy feels like suffocation. It's not because they don't feel something for you. It's because feeling deeply triggers fear. Fear of being trapped, fear of being hurt, fear of being known too well. So they create space. They withdraw, not to punish you, but to regulate their own anxiety. The tragic irony is that the more they pull away, the more you try to close the gap. You sense the distance, and your instinct is to reach for them, to reassure, to fix, to reconnect. But every time you reach, they retreat further. It becomes a cycle where their fear of closeness and your fear of abandonment feed each other. You end up feeling powerless, wondering why love feels like a tug of war when it's supposed to feel like a dance. If you look at it through compassion rather than frustration, you can see that the avoidant person isn't rejecting your worth. They're reacting to their own wounds. Maybe they grew up in a home where emotions were met with judgment or dismissal. Maybe every time they tried to rely on someone, they were disappointed. Maybe they learned that being self-sufficient was the only way to stay safe. Whatever their story, their avoidance is a survival strategy, not a statement about your desirability. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does free you from personalizing it. It helps you stop interpreting their withdrawal as proof that you're unlovable. It allows you to see that you can be warm, open, loving, and secure, and they can still feel overwhelmed by it. That's not your failure. It's their unfinished healing. When you stop chasing, you start observing. You start noticing the pattern instead of reacting to it. You start realizing that their silence, their need for space, their emotional unavailability isn't something you caused. It's something that existed long before you arrived. That awareness changes everything. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you begin to ask, "Why am I drawn to someone who can't meet me where I am?" That shift from self-blame to self-understanding is where real power begins. It's where you stop trying to earn love and start choosing peace. When you understand that, avoidance isn't rejection, it's protection. You finally stop chasing what was never running from you in the first place. They were running from themselves. Chasing someone who keeps pulling away often feels like love. It feels passionate, consuming, and even romantic in a twisted way. You tell yourself that if you can just prove your loyalty, your patience, your willingness to fight for them, they'll finally see your worth. But chasing isn't love, it's a learned response. It's a pattern that often begins long before the relationship even starts. For many people, the urge to chase comes from early experiences where affection had to be earned, where love was inconsistent, or where attention was given only when you performed well enough to deserve it. When you grow up equating love with effort, inconsistency feels normal. You become conditioned to associate emotional distance with opportunity. Every time someone withdraws, your mind interprets it as a challenge. If I can just do more, say the right thing, show them how much I care, maybe they'll come back. That belief keeps you trapped in a cycle where you confuse anxiety with attraction and intensity with intimacy. The harder it gets, the more you believe it must mean something profound. But it doesn't. It means you're trying to win a game that was never meant to be played. The truth is, chasing keeps you emotionally hooked because it mimics the highs and lows of validation. When they give you small crumbs of attention after a period of silence, it feels euphoric. You think it's progress, but really, it's just relief from the anxiety you've been sitting in. That temporary relief tricks your brain into believing you're getting closer to love when all that's happening is reinforcement of the chase. The reward comes not from connection, but from the end of discomfort. It's like being thirsty and mistaking a few drops of water for an ocean. Love isn't supposed to be earned through exhaustion. It's supposed to be received through mutual willingness. Chasing someone who avoids closeness keeps you stuck in survival mode. You become hyper-attuned to their moods, their text, their tone. You start anticipating rejection before it even happens. You shrink yourself to stay easy to love. You silence your needs to avoid scaring them off. That's not love. That's anxiety management disguised as devotion, the most powerful reel. Realization comes when you understand that your chasing isn't about them at all. It's about your need to resolve an old wound, to finally win over the kind of love that once felt impossible to get. You're not chasing the person in front of you, you're chasing a feeling of completion, the hope that this time you'll be chosen. But real love doesn't require you to prove your value. It sees it, it reciprocates it. It doesn't make you beg for attention or overcompensate for someone else's fear of connection. When you begin to see that chasing is a reflection of your conditioning, not your heart's truth, everything changes. You stop mistaking resistance for romance. You stop confusing chaos for chemistry. You begin to understand that love doesn't have to be earned, it has to be met. And when it's real, you'll never have to chase it. When you care deeply for someone who struggles with emotional availability, it's natural to want to help them feel safe enough to open up. You think, if I love them patiently enough, if I show them that I'm trustworthy, they'll finally let their walls down. It comes from a genuine place, the desire to connect, to heal, to nurture. But what starts as compassion can slowly turn into self-abandonment when you take on the responsibility of fixing someone else's fear of intimacy. You begin to believe that your love can heal them, that your consistency can erase their wounds. And without realizing it, you start carrying emotional weight that was never meant to be yours. You cannot make someone ready for love just because you are. No matter how pure your intentions are, you cannot love someone into emotional health. A person's readiness to connect comes from within, from their willingness to confront their fears, to unlearn their defenses, and to risk being vulnerable again. You can't do that work for them. You can stand beside them, but you can't walk their path. And if you try to, you end up losing yourself in the process. You start monitoring their emotions instead of honoring your own. You start measuring your worth by how much they open up to you. Their progress becomes your validation. What makes this dynamic so painful is that it often feels noble. You tell yourself you're being understanding, that you're just loving them where they are. But what's really happening is that you're teaching yourself to accept less than what you deserve. You inch your needs to avoid triggering their fears. You tiptoe around their boundaries, hoping that your patience will earn you intimacy. But love that requires you to dim your light just to be tolerated isn't love, it's survival. And survival is not sustainable. There's a quiet truth that's hard to accept. You can offer someone the safest love in the world, but if they don't trust love itself, they'll still find a reason to run. Their fear isn't about your behavior, it's about their history. They've learned that closeness leads to pain, so they pull away to stay safe. You can't outlove that fear. You can only choose whether you want to keep waiting for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. It's not your responsibility to make someone feel ready for what you're already offering. Your only responsibility is to stay true to yourself while you love, to show up with openness, not overextension, to give, but not at the cost of your self-respect. Because the kind of love that lasts isn't built by dragging someone into intimacy. It's built when two people meet each other willingly, without force or fear. When you stop trying to make them feel safe enough to love you, you reclaim your own safe. Thank you. You realize that it was never your job to prove you're safe. It was theirs to recognize it. Love, when it's healthy, doesn't leave you questioning where you stand. It doesn't make you analyze every word, every pause, every moment of silence, wondering what you did wrong. It doesn't leave you checking your phone, waiting for a response that takes too long to come. Real love feels calm. It brings a steady sense of safety, the kind that doesn't need constant reassurance because both people are showing up willingly. When love is real, it's not filled with confusion or tension. It feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. Many people mistake excitement for connection. They think the butterflies, the uncertainty, the emotional roller coaster mean it's something deep and passionate. But those feelings are often signs of anxiety, not love. They come from inconsistency, the push and pull, the unpredictability of someone who gives just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to make you feel secure. That confusion becomes addictive because it mimics intensity. It makes you believe you're experiencing something powerful, when in truth, you're just trying to regulate onal chaos. Calm love doesn't always feel as thrilling at first because it's not unstable. It doesn't spike your adrenaline. It doesn't keep you guessing. It simply feels safe. When you're used to instability, safety can feel boring. You might even think something's missing because you're not constantly fighting for attention or clarity. But that's what real love does. It removes the fight. It allows you to be yourself without the fear of being too much or not enough. It gives you room to breathe. You don't have to perform or prove. You just exist and you're accepted. That steadiness is what builds trust, and trust is what deepens love. Without it, everything else collapses. Confusing relationships drain your energy because you're constantly trying to read between the lines. You spend more time interpreting than experiencing. When someone says they care but their actions don't match their words, you start living in a loop of hope and disappointment. You cling to moments of affection as evidence that things are improving, even when the pattern stays the same. But love that leaves you uncertain isn't love. It's survival mode disguised as connection. It keeps you chasing peace instead of feeling it. The truth is, love isn't supposed to feel like a puzzle you're trying to solve. It's supposed to feel like a partnership. You don't have to wonder if you're being too much or not doing enough. You don't have to keep adjusting yourself to maintain balance. When someone truly loves you, they make it clear through their consistency. You feel seen, not tested. You feel chosen, not tolerated. Real love brings emotional stability, not emotional guessing games. When love is calm, it doesn't mean it's lacking depth. It means it's built on mutual security. It feels peaceful, not passive. It grows through honesty, not through mixed signals. It doesn't leave you on edge because it's not trying to manipulate your emotions. That calm isn't dullness. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you're safe where you stand. When you finally understand what drives someone's avoidant behavior, something inside you shifts. The confusion that once kept you stuck begins to fade. You stop wondering what you did wrong and start realizing that their pattern has nothing to do with you. It's like the moment a fog lifts, you can suddenly see the landscape clearly. You see that their distance, their hot and cold communication, their inability to meet you emotionally wasn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It was a reflection of their fear. They weren't rejecting your love. They were avoiding their own vulnerability. And that realization changes everything, because once you truly understand it, the chase loses its power over you. The reason many people keep chasing avoidant partners is because they take the withdrawal personally. When someone pulls away, your instinct is to close the gap, to fix it, to bring things back to how they were. You think if you just show them more patience, more affection, or more understanding, they'll finally come around. But all that does is feed the dynamic. The avoidant learns that they can step back and you'll do the emotional work for both of you. You end up trying harder while they do less, and before long, you're carrying the entire relationship on your back. Understanding breaks that cycle because it returns your power to where it belongs. With you, when you see the pattern clearly, you stop reacting emotionally to their withdrawal. Instead of chasing, you observe. Instead of panicking, you pause. You start to see their behavior not as rejection, but as information. Information about what they're capable of, where they are in their emotional journey, and how much you're willing to accept. You stop personalizing their silence because you recognize that their discomfort with closeness is theirs to solve. You realize that no amount of love can teach someone to stay if they haven't chosen to face what scares them about connection, that clarity brings peace. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth to someone who can't see it. You stop auditioning for love. You begin to respect your own boundaries instead of bending them to fit someone else's limitations. When you understand the pattern, you see how chasing isn't love. It's self-abandonment. It's an attempt to win validation instead of choosing alignment. And once you understand that, the chase becomes impossible to sustain because you've outgrown the illusion that love needs to be earned. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you start healing. You stop confusing their return with resolution. You stop accepting inconsistency as affection. You start valuing peace over potential. Understanding their avoidance doesn't make you cynical. It makes you wise. It gives you the power to walk away with compassion instead of resentment. Because now you see the truth. You were never chasing love. You were chasing safety in the wrong direction. And when you finally understand that, you never chase an avoidant again. You choose yourself instead. When you finally understand what all of this really means, why you've been drawn to people who pull away, why you've chased love that keeps slipping through your fingers, you realize something powerful. You were never asking for too much. You were only asking it from the wrong person. The moment you stop chasing avoidant love is the moment you return to yourself. It's the moment you decide that peace is more important than potential, that consistency matters more than chemistry, and that love should not feel like a battle you have to keep winning. There's a quiet strength in choosing not to chase. It's not about giving up, it's about waking up. You stop begging for connection and start becoming the kind of person who attracts it naturally. Someone grounded, self-aware, and emotionally available. Because the truth is, the love you're looking for won't require you to lose yourself to keep it. It will meet you where you are. It will stay without being convinced. And when it comes, you'll recognize it instantly because it will feel calm, clear, and kind. You'll look back at the moments you once spent overthinking, analyzing, and waiting, and you'll feel gratitude. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it taught you what not to accept again. You'll realize that every time you chased someone who couldn't love you fully, you were being guided towards someone who could, even if that person for now is you. So if you're listening to this and you're in that place right now, holding on to someone who keeps slipping away, let this be your reminder. Love doesn't run. Love stays. And when you finally understand that, you won't chase an avoidant again because you have found something far more powerful, your self-worth. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being brave enough to look within instead of just pointing outward. Healing isn't easy, but it's worth it. And I want you to remember this. You don't have to chase what's meant to meet you halfway. Keep your heart open, but keep your standards high. The right love won't make you question your value. It will remind you of it every single day. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your heart. Take this understanding with you and let it become the reason you never settle for confusion again. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, peace is the proof that you're finally aligned with real love.